At the time of uploading this video, Kim Jong-Un has been in power for pretty much a decade, and rightly or wrongly, has meme status across the world. But let's rewind back to 2011 when his father, Kim Jong-Il, died. Now, it was well known that Kim Jong-Un would be the one to succeed his father, but almost nothing else was known about the then 28-year-old, or 29-year-old, depending on whose account you believe. Kim Jong-Un was only the third Kim to lead the North, and given that he went to school in Switzerland, the West had some genuine degree of hope that under his new leadership, maybe the Kim regime could turn something more into being like the South. And as much as he's viewed as almost the laughingstock of global politics, it's important to know the situation that Kim was walking into. Under his father's leadership, North Korea had been denied entry into the IMF and the World Bank. They'd experienced devastating famine, the US-North Korean relationship had been badly damaged when the Bush and Kim administrations couldn't work out the Keto Agreement, and then they were completely destroyed when North Korea nuclearized, and then lastly, their relationship with the South was in tatters after the Yeonpyeong Island incident. I think you can certainly say that Kim Jong-Un was taking over something of a poisoned chalice. The third Kim's reign was about to begin.
Hello there.
Okay, so today we're doing our last North Korea video, and so obviously that means doing Kim Jong-Un, but if the weight speculation is to be believed, we might have another North Korean episode to make before we finish Enemies of the West. Now, my two bits of housekeeping are this. Number one, make sure to subscribe so you become an expert in understanding the world around you. But number two, there's just not enough source material available at this point for a thorough analysis. As a general rule, when time passes, there's less vested interest in concealing or protecting documents, so this video is not going to have much of my personal take because I don't think the documentation is available, but I will walk you through why Kim's regime has attracted opposition from the West. So firstly, Kim came to power in his late 20s, and that is remarkably young by modern standards. When I added up the age of today's G7 leaders, I got an answer of 62. But why the fuss about Kim's age, you might ask? Well, North Korea's succession planning is proving to be like a monarchy. In 2 out of 2 cases, the son has succeeded the father. And often throughout history, when the new monarch is deemed too young, an older regent will really hold the power until the monarch is of ruling age. Now, that's not to say that's at all what happened in North Korea, but it gives you a window into Kim's mindset. Kim entered as this young ruler, but his dad's advisors and politicians who had been working with him for a decade were still very much there. And so to begin with, Kim wanted to consolidate power and establish that it was him who was North Korea's supreme leader and not them. And so in his first 2 years, Kim made some pretty significant purges. Now, some of these are shrouded in ambiguity, but some are much clearer. And forgive my pronunciation here, I'm just going off phonetics. Firstly, Vice Minister of the Army, Kim Chol, was executed for, quote, drinking and carousing during Kim Jong-il's funeral. Now, South Korea actually alleges that he was killed by mortar bombardment rather than from the firing squad. Secondly, Ri Yong-ho, who was the chief of the general staff of the army, was removed from his position and we think, not sure, but we think died in 2012. Ri Kwang-gon, the governor of North Korea's central bank, was removed and then executed too. And of particular significance, Jang Song-taek, who was Kim Jong-il's brother-in-law and hence Kim Jong-un's uncle, was removed from his position on the National Defense Commission, publicly expelled from the party, and then executed too on charges of conspiring against the government and for corruption too. And so having purged many to establish his own influence, Kim began to lay down the foundational economic policy for the 2010s, Byung-in. And look, I'm not a scholar in North Korean economic theory, but Byung-in seems to closely parallel Kim Il-sung's Juche, but is a little bit more specific. Juche focused heavily on developing both the economy and the military, whereas Byung-in seems to target, yes, the economy, but more specifically the nuclearization component of the military. And so under Kim Jong-un, North Korea doubled down on its nuclearization program and has conducted tests in 2013, 2016, and 2017. And in order to target the economy, Kim Jong-un seems to be cooler with the commercialization of North Korea than both of his predecessors. In 2013, the Socialist Corporate Responsible Management System allowed state businesses to have a little more autonomy. In 2014, Kim relaxed collectivization requirements so that farmers only had to yield part of their harvest to the state. And more recently, there has been something of a construction boom by their fairly low standards. This construction is mostly focused on consumerist infrastructure in Pyongyang, such as recreational parks and entertainment facilities, and the agricultural reforms seem to have been somewhat positive. Their grain output figures certainly haven't gotten worse, but have arguably plateaued a little bit, and time will tell on the infrastructure projects. And so lastly, we're going to look at North Korea's interaction with the outside world. And so obviously the fact that Kim doubled down on nuclearization meant that he won no favors with the West, and the Obama administration basically had no relations with Kim because he refused to denuclearize. And when Trump was elected, he actually initially towed the same line, but as tended to be the case, was actually more explosive with his rhetoric, famously calling Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man. However, in 2018, the South Korean city Pyeongchang was set to host the Winter Olympics, and so in the build-up to the event, the North and South had been in talks over what the Korean Olympic team should do. And so these talks actually led to a summit after the Olympics in April, and this was the first Korean summit between the two in 11 years. And so Kim Jong-Un met with the southern president Moon Jae-in, and the talks were pretty positive. A formal declaration was made to end the Korean War, and it actually led to further talks in June. This time, the talks involved Donald Trump as they met at a summit in Singapore. Now, these talks also yielded some positivity, with Kim Jong-un hosting US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo for a visit, and in return, Trump hosted Vice Chairman Kim Yong-chol. Much more importantly though, was that Kim agreed to close some of their nuclear testing facilities and shut down an assembly of ballistic missiles. And so in late 2018, there was a lot of optimism in the Western world around talks with North Korea, and 2019 provided some highlights such as Trump being the first US president to set foot in North Korea, and another summit between the two nations took place in February, but the momentum from 2018 mostly dissipated. The February summit yielded little, and Trump actually cancelled it over disagreements about the West's sanctions on North Korea. North Korea also held a summit with Russia, a country obviously not part of the new Western bloc, and so this had raised some alarm bells from the West's point of view. Talks between the USA and North Korea failed again in October 2019, and Biden's pretty much gone back to Obama's policy of North Korea having to denuclearize to begin talks. Also, since COVID, Kim Jong-un has been largely out of the public eye. In August 2020, his sister took over the responsibility of dealing with the USA and South Korea. His health is also the subject of a lot of speculation. He's certainly lost a lot of weight, but we'll have to wait and see if there's anything life-threatening. Who knows? This video could age really, really poorly. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so that you become an expert in the world around us, and next time on Enemies of the West, we're going back to the 1970s to look at the man who won the title, the Butcher of Uganda, Idi Amin. And we can't wait to see you next time for our next venture into a fascinating part of history.